Добрий день, я вітаю всіх.
Welcome everybody joining us today. I am Olga Temanova at the Ukrainian Media Center. 10 years into the war, today is the day number 694 since the full-scale invasion. We are holding the presentation of Andrii Kurkov's essay book called The Diary of Aggression 2. We are going to talk about that book and the cultural component of this war. Today we are joined by Taras Shevchenko, Deputy Minister of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine for European Integration. Andrii Kurkov is also with us today, the author of the book, journalist, writer, and screenwriter. Maksym Udovichenko is the head of the Center for the Protection of the Information Space of Ukraine State Enterprise. Oleksandr Krasovytskyi is the Director General of the Folio publishers. Mr. Deputy Minister, as tradition goes, I ask you first, perhaps every week we see the presentation of cultural projects. They are very important. They are powerful. They say the people of culture talk about things that are most important today. They must be numerous, they must be different, and perhaps someday our children or grandchildren will identify what matters and survive the test of time. Perhaps the ministry is not capable to support all the projects. What are your plans? Welcome, everybody. Indeed, we are doing our best to promote as many projects as possible. This book has been published within the framework of the project, the National Unity. When I have joined the ministry back in 2020, that area was already efficient. The full-scale aggression made it more relevant, and I believe this is more and more important. So we are working within the framework of securing the information space of Ukraine. But again, it's very important for tightening and putting together the national Ukrainian identity. We saw the related law passed last year. That is to say, within this framework of the competitions that the ministry runs, the aim is to support in the first place the initiatives that record the events that are currently taking place, what Ukraine is going through, what Ukrainian military and civilians are going through. We believe this work is important for today and for the future. It has been relevant for the Ukrainian, for the foreigners, for the soldiers. The books that we are publishing within this framework are free of charge. They are not for sale. And basically, we transfer them to the Ukrainian defenders. It's not a relatively big budget. Hopefully, all the books will receive a good write-up, but perhaps some books will be more successful, some of them will be less successful. The book that we are presenting today, of course, the author will talk about that. I'm sure that this will be super successful and super important. Mr. Kurkov, I congratulate you on this book. What has been there? What does it include? How have you been writing it? I know that there is a specific period in this second edition of this book. Well, you know, basically, I am recording the chronicle, not of the war, but of the lives of the ordinary people, including the life of the military. But I am most interested in how war impacts and changes our perception and the perception of Ukraine in the world. Every text in the book is written as a diary entry that is broadened into the essay. I think international community has seen it in such newspapers as Financial Times, Times Observer, Guardian, mainly both British, American, and they have been published in France. This is what has been read abroad, and this is the first time that the Ukrainian public will read it. I continue writing, although I wish I could go back to the novel that I have suspended, and I'm not writing it for 2 years. That is to say that the third part is likely to be published. Well, you see, I will have to have a new third or second lease of life to work on the novel. I would like to ask Mr. Udovichenko, what's your part of that? Our share in this presentation of the world-known current Ukrainian writer Andrii Kurkov. Currently, I believe, the books published in foreign languages is dominated by the books authored by Mr. Kurkov. So I'm happy that this book has been published in Ukrainian. I would like to commend his contribution in such major media of the world where people get to know about the situation in Ukraine. As for the book per se, as always, it's very exciting. You are likely to find the facts that you didn't know about. Personally, I didn't know that in Transcarpathian region we are now growing the watermelons, and the company that moved from Kherson now are growing and have been successful in growing 100 tons of watermelons. They are not as tasty or sugary as those grown in Kherson, but it's a success story. So there are a lot of facts there, and I advise you to read it. Once again, I thank the writer, the publisher's house, and the ministry for the fact that altogether we have promoted such a project. Mr. Krasovytskyi, your publishing house has been cooperating with the author for many years. I would like to hear from you, what is the response from the first edition? How many books have been published? You see, we've been publishing him for 3 decades now. Let us try to understand, and I will be talking about different things. Ukraine doesn't have that large number of cultural ambassadors in the world. Of course, Ministry for Foreign Affairs are doing a lot of things. The government is doing a lot of things to present Ukraine's cause to the world, but to make sure that Ukraine becomes the influencer and the Ukraine is known in the world, you need to have a lot of work done by the Ukrainian intellectuals. Mr. Kurkov is one of those, and I commend his effort. For the 2 years now, he's been daily talking on radio and television, writing his essays, or participates in different disputes and discussions at different platforms around the world. The second volume of this book is a spin-off of his superactive activity. He perhaps is the person who has said the most important things of the situation in Ukraine, giving an opportunity for people to retell his story. It is the writers that are believed most. This is what matters to us. It's important to us that the book sees the light of the day. It encompasses the period until the late November 2023. Unfortunately, it will see a third edition, a third volume. I am often asked, and many people ask me, whether there has been a birth of the new Ukrainian literature. My answer is, first, unfortunately, no, we haven't seen the arrival of many new Ukrainian books. The new Ukrainian novel cannot be born while the situation is ongoing. Those that will come into Ukrainian literature are sometimes busy with more important things. They are at the battlefield defending this country. It is high time now for the literature of fact. It is now that we are seeing the creation of the information component that will be the groundwork for the new Ukrainian literature post-victory. Today, the whole world wants to know the truth about Ukraine. The whole world wants to know what the Russian Federation is committing in Ukraine. I think that for the upcoming year or year and a half, the birth and the arrival of the new Ukrainian fiction will not be relevant. What we are interested most now are the documents written by the world-known authors, both in Ukraine and in abroad. But the Ukrainian reading public must be thanked. The book market has preserved its positions. Ukrainian readers are supporting with their money the market in general. They have been acting in buying books. That's why we are able not only to publish and sell the books, but we see the new bookshops, we see the new publishing houses springing up in Ukraine, which said that the intellectual life is very active. You have heard that this book is not for sale, but I think the people who appreciate his writings are looking for it. The commercial publication will come into the bookshops next Monday. What about the translations? What are your plans? This book has indeed been translated into a couple of languages. In April or May, it will be published in London in English. It will also be published in German, French, Dutch, and Polish until June. And then, hopefully, the list will go on. I think the first volume has been translated into either 26 or 28 languages. It has been published recently in Japanese, and even by the Scottish language, that is the language they speak in the Scottish Islands. I think that there will be quite a broad public reading it. I understand that people wait for your ordinary way of writing. It will not take place until this full-scale invasion ends. You see, I have set myself to write a series of novels by the end of summer. I hope that I will begin a fourth one. That is to say, a good news for your appreciative readers. Ladies and gentlemen, questions from the floor. Meanwhile, let us focus on the focus of the Folio publishers and what is your agenda. Firstly, the market for books has been changed in Ukraine very dramatically. The Folio publishers have always focused on the classics, but the readership has been interested in this. We are publishing a series of books, including the full editions of the Ukrainian classics of the 1920s and 30s. In the first place, the authors that were killed by the then Soviet power, the Ukrainian literature that was supposed to come and to arise, it didn't happen. And also we are republishing the authors that have been forgotten. Anatoly Demaro, we have renewed his text. He has been censored. We are also starting to publish other authors. This is our main area of work. The other direction, which has come very complicated, today, having analyzed the situation with the translation of the Ukrainian world cultural and literary heritage, it's about 3,000 items. Out of these first 3,000 items that the humanity has published so far, about 600 to 700 have been translated into Ukrainian, which is to say that major part of that has not only not reached libraries, it has not been translated yet. There is a matter of competition between publishers, but that competition is quite relevant, and there is not a lot of work for all of us to do. The main thing that I would like to stress is the request for the Ministry of Culture, for the Cabinet of Ministers. The state must create a roadmap, must state its position. What is it going to do with the 50% of the libraries funds that all stem from either Russia or Belarus or the former Soviet Union? These books must not be thrown out. They have to be replaced by the new books. This means a lot of work for the local communities that own the libraries. And also there is a lot of work to do for the ministry that has to define its methodological roadmap of future work. Now we are into the second year of the full-scale invasion, and the situation locally has not been changed. A lot of people have been relocated from one place to another. People go to libraries. What they see is that there is no access to the current modern Ukrainian literature or the Ukrainian classics. It is important, although we are living in the environment of full-scale war. Mr. Kurkov, you are visiting a lot of countries. You are participating in different forums. What do you think? What is the demand for the Ukrainian authorship? What kind of Ukrainian literature people are interested in? You see, in 2022, every library in the United States or in Europe has made exhibitions about Ukraine, whether it was 15 books or 20 books. Unfortunately, the Ukrainian cause is not popularized by the owners of the bookshops or by the publishers, but a lot of people have purchased translations of the Ukrainian books. Mainly they focus about the Ukrainian refugees, people of books of different quality, but the level of truth has been there. They play their role. They will not be published again. It is time to promote the current Ukrainian literature because the interest is there. Although I have seen, and I think I was sad when the Ukrainian flags have been taken off the government buildings in France. The time has passed. Now the war in Gaza is drawing more attention as compared to the Ukrainian cause. However, this time has seen the increase of number of young people who would like to study Ukrainian language or culture. I was addressing the students at the Texas University. They have initiated Ukrainian program, and they have seen 30 students enrolling, 30 Americans. It is important. I've been teaching Ukrainian literature at Columbia University until late December in New York, and I was following the trip of my colleague Olena Styashkina, who was representing the English language novel of her novel. She has enjoyed an enormous success. She had about 30 presentations. She's so frank, she's so open, she's got good English. I think the more Ukrainian writers go abroad and speak to the audience in English, the more likely it is that people both in America and elsewhere will be interested in Ukrainian narratives. But it is for us to promote Ukrainian fiction, not necessarily about Ukrainian refugees. My question would be, what else can we do to be more visible at the international forum? In the current world, there are a lot of channels of communication. And of course, we must be present everywhere, in social media, at the book fairs, in some special events, in different organizations, in showcasing Ukrainian cinematography, the movies that have been already filmed. We saw a good one, a showing of the Ukrainian movie that is yet to be published. The 24th of February, an anniversary of the full-scale invasion, seems to be a very important event when drawing attention to the Ukrainian cause, to what has happened here, is perhaps very natural. Apart from the fact that government is doing its best, it's important that Ukrainian public is extraordinarily active, both Ukrainian businesses and civilians and citizens, those who have left the country, they don't live in Ukraine, they are our ambassadors abroad. They are seeking for ways to promote Ukrainian culture, to engage more and more support in the countries where they are staying. Hopefully, in spite of the fact that there are other news items that influence the agenda, Ukraine will be in the center of focus of international community media when we will be receiving enough weaponry, and it all takes all of us to participate. I will talk about our area. A small program is called the Institute of Book. We are quite underfunded, but we are focusing it on the translation of world classics. Apart from the English language classics, all countries are promoting their fictional heritage. Unfortunately, as many things are done here under the conditions of the budget legislation of Ukraine, that is to say, we are funded for 1 year. Under the conditions of 1 year funding, a greater projects of printing books will not come to fruition. For a major publishing house, they are working with their plans for the year 2026, not 25. If we want to be qualitatively representing Ukraine around the world, we have to settle the 3-year funding period. Barring that, it will be not working, because effectively we are funding what is not important, but what is advisory. What we also need is for Ukraine to be represented at all world book fairs where you have cultural managers or authors coming from Ukraine to those book fairs, because they are attended by Ukrainian diaspora and refugees and the people of those countries. I have seen in Canada, in Montreal, when I was participating in the book fair, the Ukrainian part also featured a lot of war placards, and what I noticed was that it was the major part of those attending were coming from Canada, not from the Ukrainian diaspora. All the major book fairs have seen Ukrainian stands. It is important that this program is funded enough. I would like to thank you for your work, and of course our listeners are very much interested in your works. Hopefully we will gain momentum, because this is very important for the nation in general. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank our defenders for us to have such a possibility. We keep working on towards our victory. Glory to Ukraine.